Hey there, folks, and welcome to the Mardu Artifacts deck. If you want to see how the deck does, gameplay is linked down in the description. If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. We do a new deck every single week with gameplays throughout the week. And with that, let's see what the deck's made of. Alright, so this deck was based on the deck that we faced against with my Jeskai control deck, so some liberties. I switched a few things around, things that I didn't feel worked as well, and just kind of adjusted some counts and so on and so forth. It kind of made it my own from there. So, at the bottom of the curve, we have two Walking Ballista. Could be the top of the curve, take your pick. So, it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. Double X is its cost. You can pay 4 to put a counter on it, or you can remove a counter, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. It's a 0/0. So, with lots of mana, it's really, really good. You can set it out for 2. It really becomes a force at that point in time. If you can set it out turn 2, it's fine. Why not? Then we have Bomat Courier, 1/1 for 1 with haste, and when you attack, you exile a card face down under it, and you can pay a red and discard your hand, sacrifice it, and put all those exiled cards into your hand. So it's just it's a turn 1 beat if you want a turn 1 beat. It's also card advantage if you want to look at it that way. You expend your hand and then refresh yourself up with something new and keep the beats coming. Then we have 3 Fatal Push, just some quick removal so that we can get in with what we need. Deck is pretty impressive with the removal. It definitely does the work. So, for 1 mana instant, destroy a creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less, and with Revolt if it's 4 or less. And, I mean, we do have some Revolt mechanics we can work around and get some extra use out of it. It's possible. Then we have Scrap Heap's Grounger, 2 mana 3/2, can't block, and you can pay 1 and a black to exile a creature card from your graveyard and return it to the battlefield from the graveyard. So, it's just something that keeps on coming, and that's that's the point of them. It just keeps coming. Then we got Smuggler's Copter, 2/2 for 3. When you crew it with a crew cost of 1, it's a flying vehicle, and when it attacks or blocks, you get to loot. And that also makes it rather evasive, hard to remove. You need an instant speed removal a lot of times, or a good favorable combat situation. But it'll also loot and put things like Scrap Heap into your graveyard. There is some graveyard recursion in this, and it's quite useful, I might add, to keep the beats coming and give control a real nightmare. Then we have Resourceful Return, 1 of a black sorcery. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If you control an artifact, draw a card. So, with that, you can get some real card advantage going. You can bring all your creatures back, not a problem, and keep the beats coming. Once again, it's just, okay, you killed my stuff. Now I'm just going to keep bringing it back for a cheap cost and drawing the card, making the cantrip quite useful in order to just keep drawing and keep moving into the deck even further to get even more answers. Then we have 3 Cathartic Reunion for 1 and a red sorcery. You can discard 2 to draw 3 cards. So, with that, you can also discard things like Scrap Heap, example, and so on and so forth. Resourceful Return working in tandem with that quite nicely, so that you can get some extra cards out of the deal, or maybe you have some of your top end and you need some of the early game going at the start, and you need to just get those big guys out of the way so you can return them later and manage to get some cards in the meantime. And then we have a single copy of PNLR for 2 and a red, 2/2 legendary. And when she enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 Thopter into play with flying. And then you can pay 1 and a red to give an artifact +1/+0 until end of turn. Get to pump up in a situation where you just need to inch out a little bit more damage, then you can absolutely do that. And you can pay 1 and sacrifice an artifact, and a target creature can't block this turn. So that also results in making combat a little easier. You've we've got a fair chunk of removal with things like Fatal Push, and maybe they have a singleton blocker left over, we can clear that out of the way and go in for lethals. Pia Nalar is intended as a finisher, as far as I can tell, and is quite useful at doing that when the game aligns just that way. And then we got 2 copies of Scrap Trawler for 3 mana, 3/2, and when it is put into the graveyard, or any other artifact is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand any artifact card in our graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So Scrap Trawler dies, then we can bring back Smuggler's Copter, for example. Smuggler's Copter dies, we can bring back Bomat Courier. Bomat Courier dies, we can bring back Walking Ballista, that kind of thing. And we can do any of those steps in between, for example. So it just keeps cards coming, keeps cards in our hand. We don't run out of steam as that works. This deck is very good at not running out of steam, and that's the whole point of it. Scrap Trawler is pretty good at that. And I put in 2 Anguish Unmaking. It's different than the original deck I saw. I felt that it was very important because I played a number of games versus Ulamog, and certain things that were just, you had to be able to deal with them in order to win. They would have a clock, and we had to be able to push past Ulamog to get through that clock. And so, I mean, we could win if we could get rid of them, so Anguished Unmaking's in. Then we have 3 copies of Unlicensed Disintegration. I didn't even explain. Let's go back to Anguished Unmaking. Exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. Instant speed, so it's your catch-all cleanup. And then Unlicensed Disintegration for 3 mana, black and red. Instant, destroy target creature. If you control an artifact, it deals 3 damage to that creature's controller, and it doesn't say if that creature was destroyed, so you can use it as a bolt if you need to. So important to note, you can fire that damage at planeswalkers, for example. Say they drop Gideon, let's say. You destroy their token, you fire 3 at their Gideon, and you just got to get 1 point in on Gideon unblocked, sort of situation. So that's the kind of situation we're usually trying to set up and make sure Unlicensed is good for, if we're feeling that we're facing off against decks that do that particular thing. Then we got 2 copies of Solemn Offering for 2 and a white sorcery. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 4 life. Sorcery speed, yada yada yada. It's still useful, right? You still gain the 4 life. You can target your own things like Treasure Keeper, for example, if your life total is low and you just need to keep going, and Treasure Keeper would gain some advantage from that particular thing and might keep you going. So it's something to watch out for. With that, we have Treasure Keeper, 4 mana, 3/3. And when it dies, reveal cards from the top of your library till you reveal a card with converted mana cost 3 or less. You can cast that card without paying its mana cost. All other cards go to the bottom. So it dies, you get some sort of replacement, possibly. I mean, the worst case scenario is things like Solemn Offering comes out and you just have absolutely nothing to use it with. So it has some dead draws, but it absolutely will keep you going. Like, it has a number of really good draws as well to just keep the game going. And then we have Refurbish for 3 and a white sorcery. Return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That works when you have Cathartic Reunion early on and you dump those big guys, then you can refurbish them back for some high impact later. Then we have Yahenni's Expertise for 2 black and 2 colorless. All creatures get -3/-3 till end of turn as a sorcery, and you can also cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So you can Yahenni's Expertise, say, a small board, and follow up with an Unlicensed for whatever their champion happens to be, say, Tokens deck. Has a bunch of small stuff, and then just one big guy that's high impact. Then you can use Unlicensed Disintegration to follow up and clean up that board mess. So definitely worthwhile to have the board wipes. It doesn't really affect us that much, as you can see that we can mostly bring our stuff back. Say we're blocking with the Treasure Keeper, we keep that out, that kind of thing. Then we can Yahenni's Expertise, not really lose much steam with the Treasure Keeper, cast whatever 3 mana card off the Expertise and whatever Treasure Keeper also happens to produce. Then we have Chandra Torch of Defiance for 2 red and 2 colorless, 4 loyalty planeswalker. +1 exiles the top card of your library. You can cast that card. And then if you don't, then Chandra deals 2 damage to each opponent. And then +1 adds 2 mana to your mana pool, which 2 red mana to your mana pool, which helps get some extra plays out or some bigger plays if you need to. Can ramp you technically. -3 deals 4 damage to target creature. Never know. Could be relevant. We might not run into our removal. It could be important. And then -7 wins you the game. Whenever you cast a spell, then you get an emblem, and whenever you cast a spell, the emblem deals 5 damage to a creature or player. So then we either if we're at low life total, we establish control of the board, or if we're in a good state, then we just start burning them out. Then we have Noxious Gearhulk as one of the top end for 4 mana and 2 black. It is a 5/4 menace, and when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy another target creature. If that creature is destroyed, you gain life equal to its toughness. So yet another, like, that's what Refurbish is good for, and what discarding it early is for, and so on and so forth. To be able to just kind of surprise, hey, 4 mana, your guy's dead, I gain a bunch of life, and maybe I'm swinging in with something else. Also, he's a 5/4 menace. And people might want to try and target him. And if they target him, then we've got the Graveyard Recursion to keep bringing him back. Also, if he dies and we got a Scrap Trawler out, then we get just about any artifact we want back. Then we have Combustible Gearhulk for 4 mana and 2 red, 6/6 first strike. And when it enters the battlefield, you can give your opponent the choice of you drawing 3 cards or taking the top 3 cards of your library and putting them into your graveyard, and Combustible Gearhulk deals damage based on their combined mana costs. That also works out, again, with Graveyard Recursion. So if they wish to take the damage, we can refurbish, say, something that goes into the graveyard that we want to bring back and keep the plan going. Or maybe they want to kill the Combustible Gearhulk. They got the kill spell, and by that point in time, if you can take out a 6/6, you probably got their best removal spell. With that said, then you can refurbish, bring it back, and keep pushing and keep putting the pressure on. And with that, that's the non-land cards. With the lands, we have 2 plains, 5 swamps, 4 mountains, 2 smoldering marsh, 2 clifftop retreat, 2 isolated chapel, 2 dragon skull summit, and 4 evolving wilds, just to make sure we have our mana when we need it. White is a very small color in this, as you can tell, with 6 sources, and that means that we only splash, and occasionally we'll get it whenever we need. And it's not a priority by any means. It's just simply we work with the red and the black primarily, and then the white just kind of fills in the gaps for the things that red and black can't seem to do as well. In this case, Anguish Unmaking and Solemn Offering. Refurbish is just an additional card to keep the plan going. And with that, hope you enjoyed. Again, gameplay is linked down in the description. And with that, I'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.